We've got a little bit of a different episode today. We've got an individual who has just been accepted to one of the most esteemed schools in the world.
Sometimes the answer really is just to force yourself to read. It depends, some people can draft really fast and it takes longer to edit. I mean, there's a classic, you'll never make money, that's not a career.
She's an aspiring author, Laura Skinner.
I think that they're entitled to know everything about your life. Yeah, I just think I've always been, had an opinion, I guess, about fame and I don't like that people stop seeing them as humans, and I don't like the way the media. I guess the main thing is just to enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. If it's not fun anymore, then what's the point?
What's going on, Meeting Gold listeners? It's Chris Battaglia, 416 Coffee. Use the coupon code Meeting Gold to get 10% off your first order at 416 Coffee. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Meeting Gold Show. I want to thank you for joining us on today's episode. As you know, we post every week and we post every day on all of our social media, so thank you for tuning in. We've got a little bit of a different episode today. We've got an individual who has just been accepted to one of the most esteemed schools in the world for writing. She's an aspiring author, Laura Skinner. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited to talk about books, writing, mindset behind writing, the challenges of an author, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. I compare it to musicians, right? Would you say that there's a high level of comparison between the musician struggles and author struggles?
Definitely, especially at the beginning when you're trying to start out. I think it's a similar process where you're trying to make this creative thing, and it's one of those industries it's hard to break into.
What was the biggest challenge for you breaking into the author realm? Because it's such a niche job,
I think it's mostly just working through self-doubt and being confident enough to just put your work out there, because I've always written, but I haven't always been comfortable sharing my work with other people, so having to send it off to schools and stuff was a bit nerve-wracking.
People judging your work.
Yeah.
Was that the number one thing?
There.
So would you say for you it kind of took you from that level of having fun writing to now really aspiring to make it become something more than just a fun hobby?
Yeah, definitely. It kind of umps up the pressure of what you're doing, because now you're suddenly thinking about oh, can this sell? Will people like this? That sort of thing.
I have to ask, how many books do you read a year?
Around 100 probably. I'm at 88 right now.
88 right now. So what does that equate to daily? How many what are you reading daily?
In hours, you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe 3 on average, sometimes more. Depends if the book's really good.
I gotta say that's actually not a lot in comparison to how many books you're reading. Is there a strategy that you use to get through books quicker?
I do. I read multiple books at the same time, and usually different genres, because I'll have a nonfiction going and then fiction, and then so I don't really mix them up. So if I'm not interested in reading something at one time, I can focus on something else. And then I also read books on my phone, so I always have it with me, and I'll just read a few chapters if I have a chance, something like that.
So I equate my personality. I'm a very ADHD type of person. Do you think somebody like me can focus on reading books if they did it a different way?
I think so. I think books with shorter chapters are good, because then you feel you've accomplished something. And then I also use this app called Goodreads, and you can track what you're reading, and you can make a challenge and stuff, which I think helps, because that motivates me to read more, and I can update it and stuff like that. So
okay, I like that, because I remember I sat down and I read a book called, have you heard of it, Think and Grow Rich? So I read that book, loved it, but I had to force myself to read that book and just to sit there and read the whole thing. What are some strategies that somebody could do to, get through a book when they really don't feel like it, but they feel it'll be beneficial for their mindset?
Sometimes the answer really is just to force yourself to read. I there was a time in university, maybe for 2 years, where I didn't read as much other than what I was reading for my classes. And I wanted to read more. So what I did was I was just, every time I woke up and before I went to bed, I read like maybe one chapter. And then once I got back into it, I could read more, wanted to read more. But sometimes you just have to like set aside the time and just make yourself sit down and do it.
I have to ask, why writing? If you could describe that, but also describe one word that summarizes your opinion on writing, what would it be?
It's really fun. Like, you know, you're just creating something that's just in your mind, and it's just, especially fiction, it's fun to just sit down and be in a whole other world and just kind of escape into that and like, create something. And then it's also fun to share with other people. Like I finally have like friends of mine reading it and everything. We get to talk about it, which is fun too. So
that must be motivating when your friends read your stuff.
It is. Yeah, my best friend just read something I wrote, and she read it in one day. Like, it's a really nice feeling to know that she liked it.
How fast can you write a book?
I just finished one. It took me like 6 weeks, but that's the fastest I've ever drafted.
I was going to say that's really quick.
That's really fast.
Yeah.
It depends. Like, some people can draft really fast and it takes longer to edit, and it depends like how cleanly you draft. Like books I've written when I was younger, like weren't as good because I was just starting out, right? So it took more time then to edit it. But stuff that like I just wrote now, it doesn't require as much because, you know, I have more of a background and.
Right. So you have a little bit more like experience in that realm now. When you started writing, was there a reason why you started?
Yeah, I remember, well, I used to just write little, when I was really young, like books and stuff for fun, just about like my siblings or my dog, something like that. And then when I really started to write, like, be interested in writing novels, it was I was maybe in like grade 5 or something. And it was like fan fiction. I got into the whole like Hunger Games thing. Yeah.
Hunger Games is a great series.
Yeah.
Though.
So I always for some reason I wanted to write like the first book from like the villain's perspective. I don't know. I've always been interested in that. So then I started with that, and then I was pretty young, maybe like grade 6 or something. I was like, oh, I'm gonna write my own book.
Right.
Yeah.
A villain story. You brought that up. What do you dream about writing? Okay, so Laura is 30 years old. Laura is now an award-winning author. What book made her made the world know her name?
Something fantasy. I think I would like the Game of Thrones type thing. That's a big like aspiration, but I like books like that have a lot of characters and morally gray characters. I find that really interesting because I just like exploring. Like I don't like the whole like dichotomy between good and evil when books have just a villain where it's just like this like straight evil person. You know, I like when like both of them have good and bad in them, so you don't really necessarily know who to root for.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be interested in.
Do you feel that majority of ultra successful series or movie series or book series like that, let's use Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. I never personally dove into Harry Potter. I do want to, but do you feel that most successful series of books have a sense of people almost choose who's good and bad and there's no set definition for who is who? Yeah,
I mean, Harry Potter, I mean, you could say like Voldemort's definitely like he's just evil. Like there's not really much to his character beyond him just being a bad guy from start to finish. But there's so many characters in that like series that are a bit ambiguous, and you kind of get to decide for yourself. Or it's like the Hunger Games, for example. Like obviously you're rooting for the main character Katniss because it's from her point of view, and you want her to survive this like ordeal that she's going through. But then you also think about like it's a bunch of teenagers stuck in this situation. Like there's the ones that are painted as the villain, but like what are they actually like? It's interesting to think about. Yeah, and it really makes the reader think and almost challenges their viewpoints based on the decisions that person's making, because it is actually interesting now that you're making me think about it, because in the real world, we don't have these set people, maybe a couple, but that are villains. Mm-hmm. And we don't have these set people that are, heroes. I think there's a lot of opinion around, I mean, there's an obvious one, like Hitler would be considered like a big villain and would be in every movie and whatnot, but in majority of society, there aren't the villains and the heroes. There's so much gray area in between. How come we haven't seen that in a lot of books or movies or, film in general prior to now moving into this day and age? I don't know. I think maybe that it's easy to have people rooting for your main character if the villain is, you know, just some evil, like if you think of Lord of the Rings, the villain, he's not even like a person. I'm not that familiar with Lord of the Rings, but the villain is just this evil entity, you know what I mean? So like there's no human qualities about that at all. So like you're automatically rooting for the main characters, but then now you have like a lot of novels where the villain is like isn't necessarily completely villainous, that they're not like evil, they just like they have good and bad to them, and then you might have readers liking them better. Like sometimes I like the villain better than the hero because sometimes the heroes can be dull.
Do you know the Joker and Batman series?
I've seen like The Dark Knight and stuff.
Okay, what's your opinion on, because I think they did a great job at portraying the Joker and his views on life might just be a little bit more extreme than everybody else's, but it's almost what everybody's thinking.
He's definitely interesting. I think without him, the series just wouldn't be, you know, what it is, right? You need him as like I think the thing about the Joker and Batman is that they completely like are opposite of each other, and they can't, I think, is that they kill each other because they wouldn't be who they are without the other. Like Batman can't kill Joker because then he wouldn't be good. Yeah. And then the Joker doesn't kill him because he wouldn't be able to be what he is without Batman. So
okay, I gotta ask. You know, I can see where your creative brain truly enjoys coming up with characters. You are basically molding an entire life story and doing your best. I mean, the best authors, which you're striving to be, is making sure that the viewer feels that.
Yeah.
Feels the emotion that character is going through. What are your comments on that?
Well, you want them to seem real to people. You don't want someone to be reading and then be like, oh, this doesn't even seem like a person. Like they're called flat characters when they.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh,
when they just or dynamic is when it's like it seems like a real person. They have like fears and beliefs and like they seem human. And then you have books where it's like a lot of books get criticism, especially like for the representation of female characters for being flat, like just fitting into one like stereotype, and then they just fill a role, which is what you want to try and avoid. At least I do. I don't want to have any character that just is like, oh, there's the blonde bimbo or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I think a lot of movies. I think of one movie that comes to mind. I like movies a lot, so I think movies are very similar in a style to books, just for more ADHD people. Mm-hmm. I think that are more visual.
Movies are good. I like movies.
Oh, there you go. See, you know the series Scary Movie? I think is that what it's called?
The one that makes fun of
yes,
movies?
It almost makes fun of the scary movies.
Yeah.
They have that, like the blonde head bimbo.
They're kind of making fun of those like horror movie stereotypes.
Literally, that's what they do, and it's like, how real is it? But it's interesting because what they did was they made it very obvious that this is what people are watching. Let's try watching something that questions our views on what's, in a way, good and bad.
Mm-hmm. I like watching and reading things that subvert stereotypes too, where you think somebody's going to be like the stereotype and then it turns out to be different. Like Legally Blonde's a good one, where you have like the traditional like blonde bimbo sort of thing, but then she like goes to Harvard and she's really smart and people assume that she's this like stereotype that she fits into, but she's not.
Right.
And I like media that challenges stuff like that.
Are you always challenging your ideologies on how you're going to build future characters? In terms of, am I making them too stereotypical because I've been too affected by society and how we stereotype?
I definitely think about that, especially like I'll write the draft and I just try to get the words out on the page and stuff. But when I'm reading it over, I try to think about like how the characters are coming across. And that's when you have other people read your work too, like get people's perspective on how people seem. And, you know, you don't want to repeat what everyone's done before too. You want to have some variety. And
where does your, because listen, you could throw me in a blank room right now. See the white that we're in? If it was the other half and it was closed, you could throw me in this room and try to make me write a book, and I couldn't do it. So where does your inspiration come from to formulate ideas? And I'll save my next question after you answer this one.
I mean, it's a hard question to answer. Like, the real answer is like, I don't know where it comes from. I guess maybe from reading a lot and watching different things, you know, just things come to me, I guess, sometimes I write them down. But
is there like certain movies that you play off of? You maybe try to adjust and pivot, or?
It depends on the project, I guess. Like there's certain things I've written that are influenced by certain movies or TV shows I've seen, but it's, I don't know, just I don't know where it comes from. I guess that's the big question.
Yeah, it's like everybody's creativity comes from something or somewhere, a variety of different things. I feel like, and a lot of what we bring out on this show is people's childhoods. A lot of who you are, a lot of it, just the foundational roots is based on who you were as a child and what your parents were like, what they taught you, the people you surround yourself with, the environments you were around. What are some things that I would need to know about you to get to understand you better that happened in your childhood?
Well, I definitely think being surrounded by books all the time definitely influenced me growing up, loving them so much. Like in our house, we always had like, so I couldn't even describe how many books we had. There's just bookshelves everywhere. Even now at our house, it's just books everywhere. Every room has books in it. There's always something to read. Yeah, and I have older siblings, and my sister really likes reading too. And like everyone in my family reads pretty much, except my brother. Like he doesn't read as much, but everyone. So it was just something I always did, I guess.
Yeah,
that definitely influenced me.
Like there's so many, and now that I'm thinking about it, there's so many books, movies that really play off of each other. You look and just are so creative. The Hobbit, like who would have thought? So in The Hobbit, I forget his name, but basically when there's this big war between all the people around the country. There's this one man who acts like a woman to avoid fighting in the war, steals all the money, and then like the thing that goes like "my precious," and so he becomes that.
Oh, Gollum.
Gollum.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I knew you would know that. Where do you think people's ideas stem from for that kind of stuff?
I don't know. I know J.R. Tolkien, who wrote those books. I think that's his name. I don't know. I just had a moment where I was like, wait, is that his name?
I can't exactly
Tolkien
remember.
is his last name anyways. But I think he served in World War II maybe. So
Really?
I think maybe like a lot of his inspiration for Lord of the Rings came from his experiences in the war, from what I know. I know there's a movie about it I haven't seen. But yeah, I think life experiences like that tend to result in, I guess maybe he used like fantasy or his writing to deal with things that had happened in the war.
So if you're talking about that, like life experiences and how that kind of depicts your views and maybe eventually what book or movie or whatever you would write someday or script you would write, what would you write your book about?
Based on life experiences?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's like one experience so much as it is like I can see little things influencing stuff that I write. Like I said, I just sent something I wrote to my friend, and she could pick up on things that like we had experienced together, or conversations we had that had just like accidentally, I guess, like made itself way into the book just subconsciously. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. Do you think the subconscious mind comes up with a lot more than you actually intentionally thinking about it?
Yeah, probably. I think so. I think that's probably where a lot of ideas come from that you don't realize, but it's based on experiences like that you might not think of, but then it results in this idea that you have for something creative.
So you've just got accepted into this school in Europe. Whereabouts are you going?
University of Glasgow.
Okay, and you wrote this book or a storyline?
It was like to get in, you sent like a certain amount of pages of a project that you'd work on. So I'd written like the beginning of a novel that I sent into schools.
Well, so they don't get you to finish the end.
No, they see
That's
just,
interesting.
And it doesn't have to be a novel too. It could be like a bunch of short stories or poems. It depends what you write on. One I sent, like you could do scripts, like film scripts.
Oh, okay, so you can send those as well.
Creative nonfiction too. It depends on the program. So
now being accepted into that program, what does that mean for you? Where do you see your author career taking over?
Well, I guess the goal is just to, go to the program, learn what I can from the people I'm there with and everything, and hopefully get an agent, sell a book, would be the next step.
That would be the next step. I want to ask, and this is more of a negative question, but I'm going to challenge you to think about it. At what point do you throw in the towel of becoming an author and putting that dream aside?
I just don't think I would ever throw in the towel. Like I might do something else as like a career, but I think I would always write or try to write. I can't imagine just quitting, but that's just me, I guess.
Yeah, I find it interesting because a lot of people, entrepreneurs in general, because that's what you are, and Kevin O'Leary says, throw it behind the barn, shoot it and burn it. And there's a point at which if you chase a dream so much, I feel like it's impossible not to achieve it.
I think the only way to fail is to give up.
Really, and I think that's an interesting mindset to have. But then I got to ask, book-wise, okay? Really, in the author world, I feel like there might be one book that really takes you off, right? Or storyline or series of books. What would you say is like, how many books will you have to write before?
It's hard to say that, but I'm not afraid to write a book and then if it doesn't sell or I can't get an agent with it, just to put it aside. Like, I don't mind doing that. Like, I'll do it quite easily. Like, I'm just ready to move on to the next thing and try again.
Interesting. People who have dreams like you do, they're big, big dreamers, right? And just chasing their passion. What were some of the things you were said, just as a child or even today that people maybe try to deter you from that?
Things people have said to me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a classic, like, you'll never make money doing that. That's not a career. Or like people like they just make this certain face, and you say like, oh, I'm going to school for creative writing. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, it's not considered like a legitimate career path. But it's like any creative industry is like that. Like, people don't accept it as a job that you can do until you're actually successful in it. Like, until you're at that point where you're making money from it or doing really well, then it's just like, I can't believe you're doing that. Like, you're never gonna be able to support yourself.
So what motivates you? Like, what's your why?
I just love doing it. Like, I just, I think it's fun. It's just my passion, I guess.
Yeah. We enter into a new digital age, I guess, right? We're now entering in the last 20 years, we've seen an exponential growth in the use of technology. I mean, we're using technology today, right? Just to reach more people. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the cyber world fitting into reading and writing?
Yeah, I just think the industry will adapt to like the changes in the world like anything. And I don't think reading or books will ever go away. Like, so many people love doing it. It's such a big part of, like the world we live in. Like, stories play such a big role. And I just think, I think print books will exist for a long time. And I think also online books like audiobooks and ebooks will continue to like sell and people enjoy them. And I read audiobooks or listen to audiobooks, read, ebooks sometimes. And I also read print books. And, I follow a lot of people online who post about books and stuff like that. And they do both a lot of the time. And I just think it'll create another space for readers to go to access stories.
Yeah. I think there's a couple articles that have come out about, I'm not sure the statistics, and I wish I knew, but people just not reading anymore. What are your thoughts on that? Like, just people not engaging in reading or writing?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think people say that a lot, but I think there's different ways to engage in writing that, like, studies like that are, don't always take into account. Like, there's so many, like, audiobooks is a big one. Listening, like, some people don't consider that reading, but like, it's reading. You're listening to like a story. Graphic novels is a form of reading. And I think like TV and movies, it's not reading, but it's still a form of storytelling that's closely related. Writers are creating, stories that people are, enjoying. Yep.
And so as we kind of come into this cyber world and, you talk about blockchain, talk about Bitcoin, the transaction of books, where do you see that coming into play? Because I know, like, Amazon starting an online bookstore back in the day was like, nobody's going to buy that. Everybody likes to go to the bookstore. Then look at Amazon takes over, right? Where do you see like blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency fitting into a new digital age of reading and writing?
Yeah, I can't say I'm like well versed on things like Bitcoin, stuff like that, but it might just be another like I can see books being like this online thing where you can buy and like maybe like trade books online or share books online, that sort of thing might be something that becomes more popular. I know online libraries has become a thing. You can download like library apps and stuff like that. So
back to the point of when you mentioned about how many books you read, it's like you're already at 88, which is, incredible. What book is your favorite? Somebody's had to ask you that before, right?
Yeah. It's hard to pick one. I usually say A Farewell to Arms. It's one of my favorite books by Ernest Hemingway. It's about World War I.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a soldier. He's an ambulance driver in Italy, and it's based on like Hemingway's own experiences as a ambulance driver in Italy during the war. And I always found World War One really interesting. So,
What draws you to reading about other people's experiences?
I don't know. I guess I just always liked experiencing different things. It's just a way to experience different lives. It's like the only thing you can do where you're actually like in someone else's head and seeing the world through someone else's perspective. And I like that. And, you know, I love to travel and stuff like that. It's just like another form of getting to travel around to new places just in your head.
Yeah. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Right now, probably Japan.
Japan,
I've always wanted
why?
to go to Japan. I just think it's a beautiful country. I've never been. People always rave about it and stuff, say it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a snowboarding capital.
Is
People
it?
love snowboarding and skiing because the snow there is incredible. Is there a connection to wanting to go to Japan with also book writing and reading?
I mean, there are a lot of great writers that come out of Japan, but not necessarily. I just, you know, I'd love to go. I'm sure, like, I'd love to go and do research into the writers from Japan and sort of maybe like get books there. That would be cool.
What was your this just came to me, but I'm interested. What was your book about, or the beginning storyline about, when you applied for schooling out in Europe?
It was about a drummer in a band who had overdosed, and then it was from his girlfriend's perspective, and it was sort of about like the way fame like objectifies and like dehumanizes people pretty much. And it was sort of like at the beginning you got this, it was like news articles at the beginning, and you got this sort of like perspective on this person who was like this famous musician who died and stuff, and you get like the blanket, like what people always read about when those things happen. And then the more you go on, you're getting it from like his like girlfriend's perspective, that you see him as like a real person who like had these struggles and stuff.
So why not from the drummer's perspective?
I think I chose to focus on the girlfriend just because, you know, she sort of, well, I mean, it's told in the present, right? He's dead. So, and I think it's just, she has this perspective on him because like he was her childhood like friend and stuff. And so she saw him like go through what it was like to become famous and the way it affected him. So she's kind of like this, you know, bystander almost on the side watching the way it like changes him and how like their lives are altered by it.
Was some of the motivation of having the girlfriend do the, be the perspective of her mind and getting into her mind as the reader, was some of that to know that fame affects the people around?
Yeah, that too, definitely. And like what I'd planned a big part of the book to be about was just how it affected her as well. And like not only how it changed the nature of their relationship, but the way that like she gets like sort of attacked by the media just for being like his girlfriend, and the way like his like people's perspectives on his death and how he died affects her, like blaming her for what happened, things like that.
What was your motivation behind that, like writing that? 'Cause that's a very in-depth topic.
Yeah, I just think I've always been, you know, had an opinion, I guess, about like fame and like what it does to people and the way people view famous people that I don't like. You know, I don't like that people stop seeing them as humans, and like I don't like the way the media sort of interacts with people who are famous. Like I don't understand the need to, you know, pry into other people's lives, like personal lives like that when they don't want it, you know. And then also I'm a big like Mac Miller fan and stuff. I remember that whole situation, how people were blaming like Ariana Grande for like his death and things like that. And I was just like, oh, that's so, you know, dumb. Like, why do people think that? Or like, why are people, you know, like the media focusing on her when it's just like this tragedy that's happened, you know what I mean, that she's having to now deal with. So I always thought about that, like what that would be like.
It seems like you, because of your reading and your writing, you've really educated yourself on looking at every single perspective in the story.
Mm-hmm. I think if you read a lot, that just happens naturally because you just automatically think about like, oh, would somebody else be thinking in this situation? Especially when you're writing, you have to sort of understand people's motivations. Like if you're going to make it realistic, like why would somebody act this way? Like what would drive somebody to do something like this?
And what about like the overdose idea, the drummer? Was that, because how did Mac Miller pass away?
He overdosed.
He overdosed.
Yeah,
was that some of the motivation behind writing the book?
Yeah, but I think it also is just like it's something that's happened so many times, like celebrity overdosing or like dying in some way, and then there's like this like focus where it's almost like they become more famous because if they died tragically.
Like Juice WRLD would be one that would be huge. I mean, his numbers probably doubled or tripled when he passed.
Marilyn Monroe is a big one. Like there's this huge focus on her, and like part of the big like interest in her, I feel like has to do with the way that she died. Like Jimi Hendrix too. I mean,
what gives you the sympathy for famous people? Because a lot of people, same with like billionaires or rich people, a lot of people say, why should we have any sympathy for them? They have everything that they could want.
I just like remember that they're people, I guess. Like they're just normal people, and yeah, they have this job that puts them in the limelight. I'm sure some of them are not the nicest, or they're like I can see why people say that, but I feel like, I don't know, I just remember that, like I can't imagine what that would be like if somebody dies that you're really close to, and suddenly like the whole media is hounding you, like you're trying to have a private life. I don't know, I guess I'm a really private person, so I wouldn't like, you know, like regardless of what my job is, people being all over my business, because, you know, if you're someone like Harry Styles, for example, like you're famous because you're talented at, you know, being a musician or being a singer and stuff, but then because you're famous for what you do, so people think that they're entitled to, you know everything about your life, which they're not.
Like Justin Bieber would be a massive example.
That's another example too. Like fans just, I feel like, cross the line, I think, when it or not just fans, just like the media is a big one too. They just, you know, like there's no line between like what's okay for people to, you know, say about people or like write about people.
There's a trend out. It was like I forget who it was, but like some paparazzi guy at like Kanye's house at like 4 or 5 in the morning. He's like, "Hey, good morning, Kanye."
Yeah,
it's
and like
shut
I
the
feel
hell
like that's
up.
such a violation of privacy. I can't imagine not being able to walk down the street without people being in your face, especially paparazzi. I can't imagine that. I would never want to be famous because of that.
So, and I was just gonna ask, so what happens when a book blows up?
I think it's different for writers because it's not the same level of like scrutiny. I mean, obviously, like people know who you are. Some people who read your books and stuff, and there's a difference between like, it'd be lovely if somebody really loves your book and like comes up to you on the street and says, "Oh, like it's nice to meet you," that kind of thing. That'd be so nice, right? But like you're not getting the same like paparazzi camping outside of your house type deal that like really famous people get.
So do you think that with how you write your books, is it fair to say that depicts a lot about who you are and what you hold as valuable?
Probably. It's like things that I might support or denounce in my fiction might show like what my opinions are on certain things, but it also might not, you know, like I might have a character who does something that I wouldn't ever do or don't agree with, but I guess if that were the case, I wouldn't portray it as something that's good. I feel like a lot of writers receive a lot of scrutiny for things that are like negative or bad, but they portray it as something that should be like romanticized, like a toxic relationship, for example.
Yes.
Something you never like. I would never want to do. Yeah. Because you read books where it's like one partner or both partners in the relationship are super toxic for each other, just not good people, but it's romanticized as something that should be like good, or like people should like look up to that. And like if you have like young girls or like people in general just reading your books, you don't want to portray something like that to influence them to think, oh, that's normal or that's okay.
So actually, this brings up a really important topic that I want to talk about with you today. It's a very opinionated topic, but I think with how much you understand about novelty, writing, people, because I think that your emotional intelligence level for people is way more than what you let on, and you do a lot more reading the person than you do just talking. And I find that very interesting. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm definitely the type of person that I like to just quietly, you know, listen to other people talk if I can, you know, like if I'm in a group setting, I'm usually the one just, you know, chilling in the background, listening. Yeah.
And just really trying to understand the situation.
Yeah.
Right. And getting what you can out of it.
Yeah. I'm like not the type of person to just like, go into a situation and just, you know, say whatever, you know. I like to, you know, bounce, see what other people are doing, you know.
Okay. So I am a big person. Like I'm not going to school. I'm not going to college, university. Doubt I ever will. And I went through high school, and for me personally, you might hate me after this, I hated English class.
A lot of people do.
I thought it was the stupidest, most useless thing I could do. But I want to know your views on English class.
I mean, everyone's different. I don't think everyone needs to like English class or anything like that, or like school even. But it was just what I enjoyed, so I enjoyed English. You know what I mean? Like it was fun for me compared to something like I don't like science, you know. And it wasn't that I wasn't like
science either.
Yeah, or math or something. It's like it's not like I couldn't do it. I just didn't enjoy it, so I kind of hated it a little bit. But if I like English classes, like I like to read, I like to write about books. So I mean, this is
so coming from somebody, because my argument was always like, oh, what's the point of us reading Shakespeare? And like whether you find it fun or not, is that teaching you something for writing, it sounds like that would be a big asset. It depends who you are.
Like, if you're a writer, then yes, it's valuable because, like, Shakespeare, for example, is such, like, a big figure in writing, and his work has influenced, like, not only, like, stories, but also just the English language in general. But I think if, like, the average person, like, you don't have to read Shakespeare if you don't want to read it. You don't have to read anything you don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, read something that you enjoy is what I believe.
So what's your, for like, English class, did it give you value, like, and did you get, like, learn things from it that you found were valuable in your future career?
Yeah, definitely. Like, breaking down novels is one big thing. Like, that's valuable if you want to be a writer, like, knowing, like, different, like, I don't know the word, conventions maybe, or like tools, I guess, like people use, like different structures of novels and things like that, that maybe if, like, you're not a writer, it doesn't, like, you're like, okay, why do I need to know, like, the breakdown of how a novel is, like, structured, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, that's helpful because then I know how to structure my own novels. I know, like, different devices I can use to tell a story.
And it's, yeah, I can see definitely from the storytelling side where that would really assist you. So you brought up the good point of sometimes there's books that romanticize extremely negative things. Mm-hmm. But what I wanted to ask you was, what's your line from reality and writing about true reality? Because reality isn't kind, reality isn't gracious, there's no mercy in reality. It just is what it is. Mm-hmm. Compared to now writing a story with a happy ending.
Yeah, I tend to be the person that prefers, like, the reality. Like, I like when it is just not, you know, working out. That's why I don't think I could be a romance writer, because romance is, by definition, is, like, they have to have a happy ending. That's what makes it a romance compared to, like, a drama with, like, a romantic subplot or something. Mm-hmm. And that's just not what interests me. Like, I like stuff that are more, you know, I guess, not negative, but more real, I guess, gritty.
Raw, real, genuine.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's, as we kind of come to our time today, I have to ask you, would you kill the main character in your book?
Yeah, I would.
At the end?
If it made sense, I would.
Despite me and millions of other people probably hating you for it? Because so I gotta ask, why? Because I think there's a part of it that this has to start happening where main characters are potentially killed off, because this idea, like, I use Marvel as an example, like, okay, he's gonna come back from the dead. Like, I'm not emotionally broken by that character dying. But then you get into Iron Man's death. And I am not a big movie lover in terms of, like, I'm not obsessive, but I cried.
Yeah, he is my favorite character in the whole series, yeah.
So, and I feel like that brought back the idea that you never know what's going to happen.
He had to die, though. Like, in a war like that, it wouldn't be realistic if every, like, I hate when you read or watch, like, a movie or something, and it's, like, this big war, people are dying everywhere, and then, like, the main 5 people all live, and they're fine. I'm like, why? That doesn't make any sense. Like, statistically, somebody has to die.
It's true. It's very true.
That's why I like Game of Thrones so much, right? Because, like, he just kills off everybody. But, like, that's what would happen in that situation, you know? You can't have everybody living.
I feel like like, just that emotion. There was another movie, Passengers, with
I haven't seen that
Jennifer
one.
Lawrence. Okay, I won't spoil it for you.
You can spoil it, it's okay.
Okay, well, the whole end of the book is, or the movie is basically like, he puts Jennifer Lawrence back to sleep because he originally woke her up so she can go and enjoy the new planet that they're moving to. Mm-hmm. And the movie portrays it like she allowed him to put her back to sleep, but they ended up falling in love prior to that. And then the movie portrayed it like she went back to sleep, but then she came into the scene. Mm-hmm. And it was like this big, like, I was like, oh my God, like, she's back.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on movies, and should they start killing off more main characters?
Yeah. Just kill them all off.
Wow. Ruthless.
Yeah. I'm just like that. I don't know. But I mean, it has to make sense, though. Like, you can't, you have to have a balance, I think.
Yeah.
Don't kill everybody, because nobody wants to watch that. You know what I mean? Like, some people that you're rooting for have to make it to the end, or what's the point of watching the series?
So,
right?
And that's a good point. Because now, like, the new Marvel movies are coming out. Iron Man's dead. Captain America's basically gone. And
Black Widow's gone.
Yeah, Black Widow's gone, right? They've just now made the who's the one girl with the red magic? Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I just
They've
saw
made
that
her
in the
evil
new movie,
now.
right? I saw the new movie and I was so confused. Like, I think maybe I missed one of a team. I was like, wait, when did this happen? I forgot her name.
And that's so. My question to you is: at what point do you risk it? Because I feel like Marvel took a big risk in killing off Iron Man. Because I'm not as drawn to watching the new Marvels, and it doesn't look like you are either.
No, I mean, I get why they did it because it's kind of like you're switching to a new era of like superheroes, right? And I guess maybe young people who are starting off watching them are going to be really interested in the new people they have maybe. But if you're one of the people who has watched it from the beginning, like Iron Man's the main guy. Like without him, like there's no Marvel, like in my mind, I guess. But I mean, I'll probably still watch them too. So,
Yeah.
you know.
It's still telling stories and basing it off of the past and what happened.
Yeah, and like maybe they'll have somebody new come in that I'll really like. You never know. But it is hard, like with someone like Iron Man, like he's just like the kind of the thread that connects like a lot of the series, at least for me.
Okay, so I have one last question. What is an idea that you've wanted to use and you think you'll use eventually, and that it's your punchline idea to becoming an author, that you don't really share, but that you can look back on today, rewatch this episode from this show 10, 20 years from now and say, I did it?
I mean, like I said earlier, I've really always been interested in like the First World War, and I'd really like to write something like not necessarily historical, but fantasy based on it, maybe something like exploring, just like because it's such that war really stands out. You know, it really like represents a change in the way wars are fought, and like it really changed like just the world we live in today. So I'd really like to explore that, or like the nature of war too. I'd like to explore. So.
Okay, where can people get a hold of you if they're like, hey, we want you to write our book, or write a book on me, be my ghostwriter, or like just in general, where can people get a hold of you?
I have an Instagram for like I post about books and writing and stuff like that, and it's Laurie, so LOURIE _ October, and people can follow me there.
Perfect.
Contact me.
Well, Laura, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm excited to see what books you come out with in the future. I can't say I will be able to sit down and read every one of your books, but I will certainly try my best to keep in touch with what you're doing, and we'll certainly try to keep in touch with what you're doing. Is there any last points you wanted to make, like any final advice to other people, aspiring authors out there?
I guess advice, just like keep working at it, keep improving. Like, you know, if the best thing you can do if you want to write is just to write, and, you know, have fun, and, you know, eventually like you'll improve. And I guess the main thing is just to enjoy it. You know, it's supposed to be fun. Like if it's not fun anymore, then what's the point?
Yeah, I love that. Well, on that note, everybody, thank you for watching and listening to this week's episode of the Meeting Gold Show. If you have any other questions you would like us to ask future Golden guests, feel free to comment down below. Let us know. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more episodes like this. We'll see you later. Bye.